Beautiful. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another webinar with Sharewise. My name is Lachlan Callahan. I'm joined by the CEO, Leslie Chong, for Imugene, IMU. We're very grateful to have you on this afternoon. There's a lot of interest that's come into the stock of Imugene. Obviously, biotech is a major part that everyone wants to hear about. There's a lot of questions that have come through early, so audience, if we don't get through to everything, purely we'll try and get those questions answered at a later time. But more or less, Leslie, for yourself, thank you once again for coming on board with us this afternoon. But tell us a bit more about yourself. What got you started, and more or less your criteria behind you?
Well, so I have roughly over 25 years of drug development, specifically in cancer medication. And I'm proud to say I have 4 drugs that I've actually helped from bench to bedside. So there's 4 products marketed that I've helped shepherd through the clinical development. It's been a life's journey for me. My father passed away from gastric cancer. My mother is a lung cancer survivor. And like all of you here, you've been affected by cancer one way or another, be it, yourself, family member, friends. So I feel grateful and honored to be a part of that change. So that's why I'm in the business, and it's been a wonderful ride here in Australia.
Absolutely. And as I said, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here today. Just for those people who are turning up at the moment, we will try and answer those questions at the end. But just to begin with, we'll run through the presentation to get everyone up to date, and then we'll get started from there. So Leslie, I'll put in your capable hands.
Thank you so much, Lachlan. It's great to be here with you all. I'd love to talk to you about what's happening at Imugene. So I believe Imugene is one of those biotech companies listed on the Australian market as IMU, the ticker. We're leading innovation in cancer treatment. So we're not just this Me Too setting. We're actually looking at where the hockey puck will be in the future, and we're going after that. So innovation. Here's my disclaimer. And in short, Imugene is a clinical stage cancer company. That means we're in the clinic with patients. We have 3 drugs that we prioritize because we think that that has a great opportunity to win in this space. And by winning, meaning we have patients that are deriving a complete response, or the drug is quite active and there's a possibility for it to be a drug one day. So we have a CAR T cell therapy that I'll explain in just a few moments, and an oncolytic virus that is really doing something great in some of these patient population. So we have 4 unique platform technologies. The B-cell immunotherapy is what I started the company off with when I joined in 2015, late 2015, directly from Genentech to Imugene. So I've been here a little bit over 9 years now. So B-cell immunotherapy was what I started the development. That is going to be looked at for more of a business opportunity, because we see a lot more future opportunities with our CAR Ts as well as our oncolytic virus. We have long life patent portfolio because that's what you need in order to develop a drug, and then also prioritize when you actually market the drug. We're in cancers. So we're in blood cancers as well as a myriad of solid tumors. And 4 ongoing clinical studies. I'm very proud to say we have dosed more than 200 patients in these studies, and some of them are deriving very positive outcomes. So 3 prioritized program in Azer-cel, which is a CAR T, and this is in blood cancers. Our 2 oncolytic virus platforms, so the study vaccinia, that's in metastatic advanced solid tumors, and then our OnCARlytics. This is a combination idea, and I'll share with you what's happening and what we're doing in that program. So Azer-cel. Azer-cel is currently a CAR T, an allogeneic CAR T in blood cancers and in a specific type of cancer. So I'll explain how CAR Ts have revolutionized how you treat blood cancers. So One type of CAR T, which stands for chimeric antigen receptor therapy, or T cells, are called autologous CAR Ts. And autologous, by the name, is auto. So auto is self. So they take the patient's own blood and relegate the T cells out. It goes to a laboratory for anywhere between 19 to 42 days, and then they put the T cells or the boosted up T cells back into patients. So auto CAR Ts are currently approved in several different blood cancer malignancies, and so that is approved. But what we think is the future of CAR T is really allogeneic, where you take a healthy volunteer, a super healthy volunteer donor T cells, then we already attribute that to a T cell, and then that is frozen and shipped out to the site. So they're there when the patient needs it, and they do not have to use their own pretty tired and sick T cells in order to be souped up. We already have a very powerful T cell to put into patients as soon as they need it. And so the idea of allogeneic CAR T, we believe, is the future of how we can treat these patients, because again, they're off the shelf, on demand. When the patients, fail their first line chemo, their second line auto CAR T, then they could take this allogeneic CAR Ts. So we're after a very aggressive disease called diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. Lymphoma happens to be a pretty deadly blood cancer, and we have some evidence with other kinds of blood cancers in 84 patients, and there was a certain selected population of this diffuse large B-cell lymphoma that was quite active, where our Azer-cel was quite active. And so that's the population we're going after. So again, healthy donor T cells, we genetically engineer those, and then we infuse the patients when they need it. So off the shelf, on demand kind of care. And we have had really incredible positive evidence so far with 10 patients on our newly allogeneic souped up CAR T. And so 6 patients were on cohort A, and then 4 patients at the time of this cutoff was on cohort B. So cohort B, these 4 patients got an extra cytokine. So cytokines, a very low dose, they're off the shelf. Cytokines helps your T cells be much more vigorous and live for longer. And that's what we want. We want these supersized T cells to live longer so that they can go and fight your blood cancers. And so we saw exactly that in 4 patients in cohort B, that 2 patients had a complete response. So thus far, and we continue to enroll these patients into cohort B, but we are seeing early signs of this working quite well in this patient population. So much so that if you see this beautiful, beautiful scan, so a patient came in at baseline, was riddled with lymphoma around the neck, and then just at day 28 on their scans, you can see most of it disappeared. There was a speck still left, and at day 60, completely tumor-free, a complete response. And they had not only approved autologous CAR T, but they also had a bispecific and other chemo. So this happens to be their 6th line of therapy. And the idea is to make their T cells, our donor T cells, work better in this patient population, which seems to be working quite well. So the goal of this particular study is to finish out the cohort phase 1B with 10 or 20 patients, and that will give us evidence enough to go seek an FDA clearance to move into a phase 2. So in these kind of patient population, phase 2 is all you need in order to market the drug. So we're quite close. So I would consider this quite late stage development. So that's our allogeneic CAR T. So I want to talk to you briefly about our CF33, which is an oncolytic virus. So I think whether we wanted to or not, we learned a lot more about viruses via COVID, but this is a virus that was invented by Professor Yuman Fong out of City of Hope. And it is a combination or chimeric, as it were, where we took a lot of various different smallpox strains, put them in a vat, and it was a somewhat of a fight club situation where the one that killed the most amount of tumors won, and it was the 33rd virus that had the most tumoricide or most killing power. So that's exactly what we have put into the clinic. So simply put, our virus only loves to replicate and give that viral load in malignant cells. So cancer cells have a protein that's lacking in a healthy cell. So it only knows how to replicate, and that's in those tumor cells. And then it replicates, it bursts the cells or explode the cells and imparting that virus onto other malignant cells. Sorry, I've lost my AirPod.
It's all right. It's all right. But it sounds amazing. The technology that you guys are developing sounds incredible. It really, with this, what's the next steps with it then?
So I just, well, I wanted to explain how it works so that you understand exactly how we're putting it into the clinic. So far in the clinic, we have this is at the data cut, so 40 patients worth of data. And we saw a complete response by a cholangio or bile tract cancer type. So bile tract cancer tends to be heavily towards a bad prognosis. So if you present yourself with cholangio or bile tract cancer, you are given, unfortunately, months to live, and there's not a lot of products that work in this space. And for our product to have kept this patient alive, this is his 4th line of therapy, by the way, so more than 2 years now. And so we opened up a bile tract trial with 10 patients so that we can expedite this into hopefully a phase 2 study. We already have received and had conversations with the FDA and received fast track as well as orphan drug designation. So you could see we're in key centers in the US as well as key centers here in Australia. So the way the strategy here is that we're looking to find that dose, the recommended phase 2 dose. So what you need to know about clinical trials is that once you've got a dose that you want to take into phase 2 and hopefully phase 3 to market the drug, you have to establish that in a phase 1. Otherwise, if you need to change the dose, you have to go back and do the whole phase 1 study again. So in order to avoid that, we're being quite cautious about what we're calling a recommended phase 2 dose, because it's a one-time deal and we don't want to go back and interrogate more patients to get the right dose. So we've opened up the cholangio or the bile tract cancer trial. If we get positive results, and unfortunately, you don't need to get too many patients to respond in order for it to become a phase 2 study. So we think that we can wrap that trial up fairly quickly in 2025, and with that data go into a phase 2 study. So that's quite expedited. And then I'm going to move on to sort of the sister or brother of the MAST study, which we call OnCARlytics. So I talked about CAR Ts earlier, and this is a means of making CAR Ts or like products work even better in solid tumors. So all CAR T products are only approved in blood cancers. So that's 10% of the population. And to bring that sort of level of response rate to a solid tumor, there's exactly this program. So CF33 almost acts as a vector. We know, in fact, that it infects only cancer cells. And then in this case, it shuttles up the target or the flag CD19. CD19 CAR Ts are approved. Our Azer-cel is a CD19 directed target. And so we can very well combine our OnCARlytics with Azer-cel, but we chose to combine it with a marketed product called Blincyto, and that's a CD19 bispecific antibody. So our OnCARlytics infects solid tumors, shuttles up CD19, which only appears in blood cancers, and then we trace it with a CD19 directed therapeutic. And so it's this brilliant idea to bring that 10% of blood cancer into that 90% market. So there are several CD19 directed drugs already out in the market, and they're only approved in blood cancer. So if you can bring any of these products into the solid tumor forum, you've got a wealth of success that could happen for this study. So the idea here is to finish out our phase 1 study, establish a recommended phase 2 dose, and go into a phase 2. But I dare say, if we see opportunities here or the expected outcome, I think we'll be abuzz with lots of partnering activities. So I just want to talk about the highlights from 2024 that we showed. Azer-cel already had 3 complete responses, and these are patients that have gone through 4th, 5th, 6th lines of therapy, and to see a complete response there is it's pretty incredible. Vaccinia had a lot of successes with getting FDA approval for orphan drug designation and fast track. We just announced on those 2 patients, as well as the 3 patients in the cohort. The cohort review committee decided to expand that to further patients because they deemed it safe. And so OnCARlytics, we have already announced the combination start with IV monotherapy as well as in the combo. We will fastly move into that IT combo because that's where we're really seeing, we're hoping to see some activity, but we have to pass the IV combo combination first. And so up and coming, we've got hopefully first patient in for the IT combination. This is the combination with OnCARlytics and Blincyto, the approved drug in blood cancers that we're moving into solid tumor. And hopefully we can announce on some early IT and IV combo status and where we are. Vaccinia, we hope to look at a second indication because we're seeing opportunities there. And then Azer-cel finishing out that phase 1b study and getting the interim data out there, not only to the market as well as the bigger landscape of conferences and partnering. And then moving into that phase 2 study with Azer-cel, and then OnCARlytics, just amassing that data of the combination. And as I said, there's opportunities for OnCARlytics and Azer-cel to be combined as well. And then Vaccinia, the ongoing, achieving that recommended phase 2 dose and getting the data from the cholangio or bile tract cancer type and going into a phase 2. So investment highlights here, we have a novel platform, including a very powerful CAR T that seems to be quite active in patients. We have some significant clinical data readouts in the next, anywhere between 3, 6, 12 months. We have an incredibly experienced team. All told, we have about 17 drugs that we've helped shepherd through the clinic and into the marketing space, and then robust and broad patent portfolio. Here's my team. They all have significant experience in major pharmaceutical companies to biotech. And as I said, we have more than 17 FDA approved drugs that we have to market. Our corporate snapshot, largely held by a big percentage owned by Paul Hopper, who is the executive chairman and the founder of this company, as well as some major institutions like Vanguard and BlackRock, etc. Yeah, and that's the end of my presentation.
Absolutely perfect. Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, obviously, I think initially we can talk a bit more about the quarterly that you released. You said that you have 54.3 million cash at the moment. How long is the runway on that?
So we did not disclose the amount for 2023 R&D rebate as well as 2024. We're anticipating the 2023 to come in any moment.
Okay.
We also had a heavy expenditure last quarter due to a milestone payment to Precision, as well as a heavy burn rate for transitioning our manufacturing facility and such. So I anticipate that with all that said, we'll have 3 quarters or more.
Excellent. Okay. Okay. And so at the moment, obviously, we've got a lot of focus coming around with the clinical trials. With the phases that we've got right now, what's the next milestone that we need to achieve or hear from?
Look, I think that there's a lot of OnCARlytics pressure as well as Azer-cel to keep performing and seeing those promising results. There's you know, people ask me all the time, who's your favorite child? And I think those two might be our favorites. But if OnCARlytics start to show some activity early on with that combination, I think that's going to garner a lot of attention from US investors and partners.
Yeah, absolutely. So a few of the questions from the audience, a lot is to do with more or less progression. The Hervax, is that still being shopped around at the moment, or is that just being put on the shelf a little bit for the moment?
No, it's in and I think I published this and talked quite openly, that is being business and developed. So we are trying to out-license that. And so that's currently our goal and our plan.
Okay, beautiful. And so
And I want to clarify something. In order for us to continue to develop Hervax, that would take a lot more cash, cash that I do not think that we would have, even though we saw promising results in phase 2. So that's why the decision was the heavy decision to be made there to out-license and monetize that.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And so obviously, news later on down the track should be what we look out for more information. Obviously, we've achieved excellent results in a few of those trials with those patients. What was more or less a standout with those patients, in particular those 2 patients, which led to having that 3rd patient getting more research on that trial done?
So are we talking about Azer-cel? I
Yeah,
presume
correct.
with the added cytokine of IL-2. We have a brilliant scientist and clinician on our study, Dr. John Bian, and he had researched and looked at it, and he's a hematology oncologist by training, and he sort of had this brilliant idea, you know, our Azer-cel seems to work okay, but maybe if we added a small amount of cytokine, which is IL-2, maybe it would make the T cells live longer. And sure enough, this very low dose of IL-2 is really making our T cell resurge. And that's what we're seeing. So the patient profile looks pretty similar from cohort A to cohort B, but cohort B obviously is doing much better in terms of responses as well as durability. So we hope for more to come.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think at the moment, from your perspective, Leslie, when it comes down to the company and going forward, what is your priority? Is it more generating the side of the business, or getting these clinical trials out and getting the best result at the end of the day?
So I think data should mirror the business. We are a biotech company developing cancer medication, and our company goal is to produce medicine, be it by partnering or company goal is to partner as early as we can.
Yep.
And or if we get to a point where Azer-cel is getting very good results and we think that we can go it alone to have some commercialization, then that's the path we'll go. But it's all very much focused and hinges on how we do with the clinical trials. And so all trials are recruiting and are quite active. And so that's what I keep my head down. to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think with the sort of questions at the moment, shareholders will also take that into account as well. I think for going on from this webinar and leading to the future, for those shareholders, and it sounds like a lot of shareholders today, what would be your comments to make going forward from here?
So we have a better infrastructure and better consolidation of drugs that we're targeting to read out early and fast. And so that's just been my focus, to produce hopefully the next generation of cancer medication that will fit an unmet need.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And do you think Imugene is in a good spot to navigate those challenges going forward?
I think my clinical development team is top notch. I think you can compare us to any biotech companies in the US or Australia, and you could clearly see we've got a level of experience, and we're goal-driven, and we're very much in the same line of value to produce medication for a truly unmet need, which is these very dire cancer state.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And hopefully potential partnerships down the road is what we'll be looking forward to as well.
That's right.
That's right. That's right. We are getting a lot of questions inundated. We might have to filter through these at a different time. What we'll do is we'll send these through to Leslie so she can try and get through to those and answer in a little bit more detail than what we can do with the limited time that we have here today. But for all those new investors out there, obviously this is a great company to be looking into. I look very much forward to hearing about going more with clinical trials and anything more to do with that. But apart from that, I think for today, we might have to start wrapping that up, Leslie. And I'll have to thank you for your time and coming on with our webinar today.
Thanks for letting me come on and be with you.
Beautiful, beautiful. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much.
Thank you.